All right, here's your quick review guide for the Communist in Russia, Unit 2 AP Comp. A couple of things here that you need to know about the communist portion of the unit. Again, why are people attracted? They're trying to create equality. They can give them jobs, um, same income, and things like that. That should be attractive. However, it does usually fail. Karl Marx, the individual that created this concept idea, his main beliefs there were that it would start in an industrialized state. However, Mao and Lenin thought that this could happen in agricultural states, which it did in those two countries, Russia and China. A couple of the key terms here: bourgeoisie and proletariat. The property owning middle class is the bourgeoisie versus the working class. The working class would get upset and kind of create that vanguard of the proletariat. So a group of individuals that are trying to change or revolt against the system and go towards a communist type system. In a communist regime, the Politburo is like your cabinet. It consists of about 12 members. They make all the party decisions. It's headed by the general secretary, which is the most powerful position in a communist regime. Towards the end of the USSR, and which led to just Russia, were some reforms that Gorbachev tried to enact, and one was perestroika, economic and political reform, so kind of going towards a market economy, and then Glasnost's political openness, talking about allowing them to talk about the government, which led to the downfall. Now, some key characteristics of Russia. Again, it's an illiberal democracy. There's no transparency, meaning the government's not being checked. They're not giving out information to citizens. Civil liberties are often violated. They're not always protected. Elections are there, but tend not to be honest. And civil society is really lacking. And civil society lacks, again, because of the communist regime. Difference between procedural and substantive democracy, different terms here for the different types of democracy. Procedural is an illiberal democracy, and substantive would be your liberal democracy. When we talk about religion, the main religion in Russia is your Russian Orthodox Church. It does restrict a lot of other religions. Lutheran, Methodist, you have to register with the state. If you don't get a license, you can't practice, and they may arrest you if you are trying to practice. Again, then the second leading religion in Russia would be Islam. Today we talk about Putin. He's the most powerful person in Russia. The Federation Council is known as your upper house. They represent regional interests. However, they've kind of been taken away some of their power because of Putin. They can disapprove of some legislation. They can approve of justices. However, when they do disapprove of legislation, the Duma can override that. The changes to the electoral system, again, it's always helping Putin and his party. It was a mixed system. It went to proportional now in 2016. And going forward, it is back to a mixed system. In Russia, they have the idea of asymmetric federalism, so there's uneven power. So different regions have more power than others, and this all has to do with the president, again, having the most power. Talked about civil society in Russia, why it's important. Civil society, again, formal and informal organizations. However, it's not very strong in Russia because of their background in the communist regime, where they limit all of those things. Civil society is composed of groups, bring people together, common interest, organizations that volunteer. Russia kind of limits outside organizations, especially from participating or operating in their country. And this is the idea as well as statism. The government should provide for the people. So again, they're used to that communist regime. However, they don't really have participation in their civil society, but they still want the state to help. One of the biggest cleavages in Russia, one of the regions, is Chechnya. They're breaking away a little bit. There's a highly Muslim population with some terrorist organizations. They do have their own constitution, but they are not allowed to break away from Russia. When we talk about Yeltsin, he tried to completely change the economy. Shock therapy was an example. Went from a command economy under the communist regime immediately to a free market, and this did not work. It really harmed the economy. The difference here of civil society in Russia and the UK, again, Russia had not developed a civil society, so it's hard to go forward. Nashi is the youth organization that Putin has in place to kind of promote the government, lead demonstrations and protests, again, getting these individuals ready to become part of his party. Some changes that Putin has made, again, strengthening his power and centering some power with the president and with Moscow, created super districts. He can hire and fire any of the governors in those regions. He has more control over the Federation Council. He's also kind of changed the way the Constitution works and being able to put himself as prime minister and then back as a president. He's also created differences or changes in the electoral system. The 1993 Constitution has checks and balances. It was created after the fall of the USSR. Again, the prime minister is picked by the president, therefore, again, giving Putin and the president more power. The Duma can reject the prime minister, and if they do this 3 times, the Duma is dissolved. Another power the Duma has is can override or veto or override bills. The president can veto bills. The president can also be impeached by the Duma and the Federation Council. Last one here, pretty important. What are the similarities and differences of the UK and Russian legislature? So they're both bicameral. They both can pass laws, make legislation. They can have debates over policy. However, it's the way that they're elected. The Duma has mixed elections, and the Federation Council has elections that are appointed, or people are appointed. House of Commons is just single-member districts. The House of Lords are appointed. And also the difference here in legislatures, the Duma, yes, has a prime minister, but that prime minister is appointed by the president. In the House of Commons, the prime minister is chosen by the majority party.